What's up, everybody? I'm Alan Seslowsky, and thanks for tuning back into RosterWatch. Today, we're going to discuss part 2 of a Dynasty Startup draft that recently happened between RosterWatch Pro members. To see part 1, click the link in the video description below. It can be helpful to break down these drafts, get some strategy analysis and observations, so you can have some actionable takeaways when you enter a Dynasty Startup draft this offseason. This particular draft was a 12-team draft and a tiered PPR system, where the running backs got a half point per PPR, wide receivers a full point, and the tight ends a point and a half. It also required a Superflex, which means you're going to start a second quarterback. Other starting positions were 2 running backs, 3 receivers, and 2 additional flex, in addition to 2 starting tight end positions. The draft board for rounds 10 through 20 are also linked in the video description below. Let's start with some key takeaways from the double-digit rounds. Drafters had to make decisions in this range between rookie wide receivers with a ton of upside and post-peak veterans with long resumes. You're making decisions between players like Jarvis Landry and Amon-Ra St. Brown. One injury away running backs are widely available in this range. Value certainly emerges at the tight end position in the double-digit rounds, and starting quarterbacks, even in a Superflex league, are still available. The last takeaway is that previous year players that had upside that disappointed, mostly second-year wide receivers, they fly off the board in this range. You're going to see Henry Ruggs, Jalen Reagor, and other players that may have disappointed you last year start to go in the double-digit rounds. Superflex drafts are growing in popularity, and Superflex drafters are getting sharper. As the format grows in popularity, the idea of securing quality quarterbacks is becoming essential. Surprisingly, there are a few possible starting quarterbacks available late in the double-digit rounds. Those players do come with serious risks. Players like Jimmy Garoppolo, Cam Newton, and Teddy Bridgewater are a few of the names that are available in this range. RosterWatch asked a few of the participants what they would do differently in their next Superflex startup. One of the participants, Mike D, said, "I might attack QB earlier. Drafting Ryan Fitzpatrick and Ben Roethlisberger as my quarterback 2 and 3 makes me feel very uncomfortable in a dynasty league. Both are very reasonable players in redraft, but since I did wait on quarterback, I'm able to bolster up the other positions." RosterWatch Pro member Brandon Adams said he wanted to be more patient and trade back wherever possible. He noticed that value falls down the board in a league this deep. And an interesting quote from Shane Sealy, RosterWatch Pro member. He said he would choose to draft the slot closer to the middle rather than taking one on the end cap. Having middle round picks allows you to move up and down the board a little bit easier because your trade partner never has to move back a full round. Next, we're going to summarize a little bit of what happened in rounds 10 through 20. The best pick was by Team Barron, a RosterWatch Pro member. He took Hollywood Brown at pick 13.11. Hollywood's a player that rose up the ADP quickly last offseason and disappointed relative to his 2020 draft cost. A sharp strategy in fantasy football is to target players who underperformed for most of the year and then the last 5 or 6 weeks blew up. Hollywood Brown fits the description to a T. During weeks 12 through 17 in 2020, Hollywood Brown finishes the wide receiver 13. That's right on the fringe of being a wide receiver 1. He's now going to be relegated to a role he's more comfortable with rather than being the alpha in the Baltimore offense. This should make for a lot of explosive plays from Hollywood, and he's a player that you can get as your wide receiver 4 in startups that could be more of your wide receiver 2 when things break right. One of the riskiest picks in the double-digit rounds was Raheem Mostert. He went in the 12th round. Now, Mostert performed well most of the year when he was healthy, but now 29 years old, drafting him in a dynasty league represents a risky win-now play. There is a point where Mostert does make sense for a win-now team, but in the late 12th round, players like Jamal Williams and Gus Edwards were still available. Both players are slated for immediate roles and are one injury away running backs that could have a weekly top 15 ranking at the position. Both of those running backs are 4 years younger than Mostert. Mostert does have game-breaking speed, but it is a risky pick in the middle of the 12th round. The best value pick of these rounds was made by Shane Sealy. Elijah Mitchell, the running back on the 49ers, picked in the 17th round. For the exact reason why Mostert is a risky pick is why his backfield teammate Elijah Mitchell is a value pick. Elijah Mitchell has a chance to be relevant for a few games. His draft cost is 5 rounds later than Mostert, and he's only 23 years old. Let's keep in mind that most dynasty startups are conducted with a 4 and 8 hour timer. It gives fantasy managers time to think through strategy and make trades before they're forced to make a pick. Sometimes fantasy managers are guilty of overthinking picks. I know you've been there. Other times, we make the pick way too quickly. RosterWatch asked a few of the participants which draft pick that they made that they regretted immediately. I picked Hunter Henry at 9.12. I knew I'd have to sacrifice value at wide receiver and running back eventually to pick a tight end, but I'm just not confident Hunter Henry is going to be a reliable weekly fantasy starter. Though Logan Thomas is 29 years old, he's probably going to be a top 12 weekly tight end. I wish I had drafted him instead of Hunter Henry. Brandon Adam, one of the participants, drafted Stephon Diggs over Antonio Gibson and immediately regretted it. Diggs is obviously a great player, but young running backs are impossible to acquire after the draft is over. You need to collect them as soon as you can in Dynasty Startups. Shane Seeley said he didn't feel great about drafting Dallas Goedert in the 7th round when there were alpha wide receivers like Kenny Golladay, Keenan Allen, and Mike Evans still on the board. He said he felt pressure to secure Goddard in a 2 tight end format. He was the last player in the current tier. Okay, RosterWatch Nation, that's it for today. Remember to like and subscribe to get notification when we put up new videos, and leave us a comment in the video. Let us know which players in the middle rounds you thought were the best and worst picks. Until next time, goodbye.